It's a sport that brings the world together like no other, and a global celebration that takes place every 4 years. This November, we're going to the World Cup. Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth, and I am excited about this setup. It's not a traditional festival, but it is definitely a celebration, and that is the FIFA World Cup, which takes place every 4 years, and in 2022 is happening over the months of November and December in Qatar in the Middle East. Now for my color palette, I have chosen sort of the burgundy colors of the Qatar flag, along with some grays and just black and white. All supplies will be listed in the description box below, so let's go ahead and get started. I am going to kick things off with this burgundy Ohuhu marker. It is number 126 because I do like the fine point or fine liner end of it, and I'm going to use it for predominantly my headers in this setup. Out of all of my alphabet stencils, this is probably the one that I have reached for most often. It's just a very clean, straight block sort of font with no flourishes on it. I definitely used it in my 2022 setup in the beginning, and I think I've picked it up for multiple setups since then. You'll see I have a number on that particular stencil now. I have had to come up with a creative way to store and catalog all of these letter stencils, so let me know if you'd be interested in seeing how I have changed my storage system for that moving forward sometime in the future. And stencils like to stick to one another, so I had to come up with an alternative method than just keeping them all in a box. Now I am starting off this setup with a quote about competition that reads, "The lessons of competition are lessons for life." As someone who grew up as an athlete, I can tell you that most of my life lessons were learned on the field, the track, or the court. Now for the November header, I did switch to a larger stencil, and I am coloring that in here, showing you a little bit of real time there before speeding it up. And I'm really not being very fussy about coloring these in. There's a lot of these where I go out of the lines this month and I really just don't care, and then I'm bringing in a little bit of black on the bottom just to give that November header a little bit of dimension. Here in the bottom left corner, I am going to draw out one football, and it'll be the only one you see in this setup. I realize that footballs, or soccer balls as the US and Australians call them, are just made up of hexagons and pentagons, but they are difficult to get right, so I am gonna do this one here in the corner on my mostly minimal cover page, and then the rest of the setup will celebrate the World Cup in different ways. With a completed football in the corner, I am going to move to doing an abstract version of the World Cup trophy here on the right. While I do that, let's talk about the World Cup. The current reigning champions of the World Cup are France, who won in the 2018 tournament. The Women's World Cup is held on off years, so theirs will be in 2023, and it's going to be hosted in Australia and New Zealand. First Men's World Cup was held in 1930, so we are creeping up on a 100-year anniversary. It was skipped in 1942 and 1946, like many of the things in the world, due to World War II. And then the Women's World Cup was first held in 1991. So why soccer versus football? Well, soccer came off of an abbreviation of the word association, which is ASSOC, and then an ER got added onto the end of it, so a soccer, and for years it was referred to around the world as soccer football. By the time the rest of the world started shortening the term to just football, Aussie and American football existed, and thus the word soccer in those two countries became prominent. And that mostly finishes off my cover page for this FIFA World Cup 2022 November setup. I do make some minor alterations that we will see in the flip through, but for now let's go ahead and move on to my calendar. For this page, I am starting off with that same large stencil to stencil the word November across the top. Now for this month, I did choose to go with a standard calendar block layout, which is unusual for me. I normally do some sort of mini calendar and then have a place for me to put goals and that sort of a thing. But for this month, I decided I wanted to try writing in the squares. So my squares are going to be a little larger, which is the beauty of a B5. They are going to be 7 dot grid spaces by 7 dot grid spaces. Here in the top left corner, I am doing an outline of Qatar along with its flag pattern inside the country outline. My pronunciation of Qatar, by the way, is very much the Western adopted pronunciation of the country. I do try to get pronunciations as culturally accurate as possible, but I have not studied Arabic at all, and I do find some of the sounds difficult, so I will link a video in the description box below if you would like to know how to pronounce Qatar correctly. The flag of Qatar has this interesting triangle pattern on it, and I did use another stencil from my stash to get that as close as possible, and then carried that triangle motif through the rest of the setup to add some cohesion. With the black line work down on the page, it's time to add some color. This main marker that I am using is an Amazon Basics dual tip brush pen. It does not have a name or a number, but I will link the set in the description box below. One thing I am adding to this page is also 4 habit trackers, just because I felt like they fit nicely into this spot, and it kind of saved me from doing any other artwork down in that corner. And then of course I'm coloring in the triangle pattern for the Qatar flag. And with the maroon of the country and the maroon of the N running together just a little bit, I used a white gel pen to highlight the outline of the country so that that stood out just a little bit more. While I had it in my hand, I put in the titles for my trackers, which are moving, journaling, a new skincare routine, and stretching. And you could really tell on the titles of those habit trackers I was not being very fiddly with the coloring in of the maroon. I was just getting it down on the page. I did use 2 different grays, one slightly darker for the daily headers and another lighter one to outline every other line on my to-do list, and then finished off the spread by using the fine tip of the hoo-hoo to put in the days. And that will wrap up for me this very large calendar spread. I am considering a more permanent move back to this calendar sort of section, but I do not intend to use a B5 for 2023, so we'll have to see if I have enough space to write in these squares. Now, I can't celebrate something like the World Cup in my bullet journal without setting up a World Cup bracket, so that is what my next spread is going to be. It does take quite a long time to set up, so I'm going to go ahead and pre-fill some of those items here for you. Starting off with our brackets or groups. So where you see G is Group A, Group B, Group C, and on the other side I just reversed them, but G still stands for group. And I went ahead and put in the bracket structure, repeating that triangle motif from the Qatar flag. And then here I am putting in the teams with their 3-digit codes for each of the groups. I will be keeping my eye on Group B because that is where England, the US, and Wales are all competing against one another, so obviously 2 of those are not going to make it through. I also tend to root for the African team, so in the absence of Kenya, I'll also be keeping an eye on Group H, which is where Ghana is competing. And that will wrap up my bracket spread for the 2022 World Cup, and we are going to move on to a special page just for this setup, as well as a wellness tracker. Now the page on the left is going to be my Dots and Beyond plan for the holidays. I will not be vlogging, but I do intend to post a video a day, at least from the 1st through the 25th, if not the 1st through the 31st. I do keep the bulk of my content planning in Notion, but I know November is going to be very, very busy, and I wanted to have a quick glance page where I could look at each project that I'm working on for December to see what sort of stage that is in, whether it's something I'm still researching, am I sketching it out, have I already filmed it, is it already ready to post, that sort of thing. For the artwork on this page, I did draw a world map in the top left corner since this is a global competition, and in the bottom right corner I'm doing a quick outline of the capital city of Qatar, which is Doha. This is a recreation of a line drawing I found off of a quick Google search, so I definitely did not come up with this one on my own. With the artistic elements in place, it's time to pop in the line work, so out with the ruler we go, and I will skip ahead to where this is mostly finished for you, and we can start populating the headers for these trackers. On the top half of the wellness tracker, I will be tracking sleep and steps. On the bottom half of that tracker, I will be tracking my mood and water intake. Next to the city of Doha, I have a special tracker for therapy and thoughts. Those of you who've been watching for a while know that I started talk therapy again, and I have actually taken that one step further and will be going under a full psych analysis again for my bipolar disorder, just to make sure everything is where it's meant to be, and I'll have a lot of appointments in November for those follow-ups. For some lighter lines, I have invested in these cool gray Pigmamicrons, and I really love them. A 10 out of 10, I'm using them all over the place, and I chose to separate some of my spaces here with the lighter gray instead of the black line so I could keep things in specific sections. Back to this little therapy box. Most of my therapy tracking will take place in a therapy journal that I have set up. I will link that for you in the cards above if you're interested in seeing how I set up a specific therapy journal. but I wanted to keep a little something I could eyeball here in my main journal as well. And that will be it for my wellness tracker, as well as your little spoilerly announcement about plans that are coming in December. Speaking of my mental health, this next spread is going to be a productivity tracker. I did not come up with this idea of sort of gamifying your life, and I've gone ahead and set up this Dutch door that has my key on it here. I will link 2 creators down in the description box below who have great tutorials on this system. One of those will be Jess from Joshy Corin's, and the second will be Katie from Dark Sunlight. This is another one of those setups that is ruler heavy, so I'm going to go ahead and pop in some of the setup already so that you can see that. I did add a football scarf in the top left corner as my artistic element on here. Now, I have also used this system for mental health as a mental health tracker, really for those days where even taking a shower is something that's notable for you. So you can use this system that way, or you can use it just in regular productivity. And the idea is to schedule in a little doodle on each 2x2 box for what you have done that day. And you have a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. On this particular one, I also have 2 columns for plan, so that I know days that I've done things that are specifically Dot and Beyond related. This will be my first time trying this setup for productivity, so we'll see how this works out for me. I've mostly been intimidated by drawing the little doodle for every single day, but I am struggling, and so I wanted to see sort of where my time goes on those days that I need to step up and be productive, and then if I hit them, obviously I will have hit a goal. With the goal line in place, it's time to move on to my weeklies, and I am keeping my weeklies very simple for November. So here for week 45, you can see I have mostly blank space, although I do have a little section for each day, and that is because I have mostly been doing daily logging. So flipping back here to the week in October that I'm currently in, and you can see I've been doing a lot of free flow fill in, and I just wanted to leave that space for me to do dailies. After setting up week 45, I did leave myself the pages that I am going to need for subsequent weeks, and then we're going to go ahead and flip over and set up my review page, which I'm also going to do a little differently this month. But first, we're going to start off with the header and a piece of artwork in the middle. Of course, for that header, I am busting out that very large stencil again to put in review, and just coloring it in the same method that I have done for all of the large headers thus far. For the artwork down the middle of the page, I am sketching in the emblem for the Qatar World Cup. Now, this particular emblem has some complicated designs on it, and I did actually trace this in. Sometimes you just have to trace something to get the dimensions correctly, and then this sort of floral artwork here on the bottom is just a facsimile. It's obviously not perfect, but I did want to get sort of this figure 8 shape on the page proportionally, so I did definitely trace this in. The right side of this spread will then be my own personal review, and so I am putting in 5 sections. One of them is going to be for what's working, one for what's not working. The middle section will be for reflection, and then I'll have fun and favorites at the bottom. Most of these categories are blank white space, but for the reflection in the middle, I did choose to create a ruled line using that same light gray pigment micron from before. That will wrap up the space for my own personal reflection, but what I've been missing lately is a place to sort of keep world events, and what I did in the beginning of 21 was sort of do that in a doodly fashion. So this is my January Okoye review page from my Fierce Fictional Female Challenge, and as you can see, I kind of had a doodly way of marking down world events, big things that happened in my life. That's sort of a review page with a little bit more interest, and I've kind of decided that maybe I want to try that again. So what better time to do it than on a World Cup page? So I did leave this section empty for me to fill that out in that manner. And that will set us up for the flip through, where you will immediately see that I began to make some changes and use that little roll of washi tape that I had to my right. So the first thing that I did was add a little bit of gray to blend in the maroon and the black on each of my large headers. And then I added some of this washi tape to some of the major pages just to ground it a little more and make it feel a little more complete. I am also considering adding a mini calendar to this cover page, but at the point of this voiceover, I still haven't done that. Moving on to the calendar page, and you can see I made some of the same changes with the addition of the washi tape and blending of those letters. Here on my World Cup bracket, I simply added the washi tape to the top and the bottom, and then I also colored in some gray headers on these boxes just to make them stand out a little bit more. The layout for my holiday plan, my wellness page, and then the productivity pages also got the same treatment with the washi tape, and then just enhancing that large goal area at the top with a little bit of the gray marker to blend in with the black and the maroon. Now, if you have made it this far, please leave me a football or soccer emoji. What else? Down in the comments below, and let me know who you're going to be rooting for in the 2022 World Cup. And if you're not a fan of sports, leave me the same emoji and just type "Yay Sports." Because honestly, even as a sports fan, sometimes I feel that way too. And of course, please give this video a big thumbs up down below if you found any portion of this video helpful. It truly is the best way that you can support this channel. Thank you for choosing to spend part of your time with me today as we set up November in my bullet journal for 2022. And since you got a sneak peek of what is coming over the holidays and all the goodies that are coming your way, please subscribe if you haven't already and turn on those bell notifications so you know when all of those videos land. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.